Octobot Tech Talks, transforming digital experiences in 30 minutes. Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Octobot Tech Talks, the podcast where we share our experiences designing and developing digital products, from Uruguay to the world. We are excited for our first English episode and we hope you all enjoy it. My name is Reggie and I'm the communications manager here at Octobot. Today we are going to talk about technology and the dairy industry. Our goal is to explore the challenges the dairy industry faces and how technology can help companies overcome them. In this episode, we welcome our guests, Guillermo Pérez, CEO and founding partner of Octobot, Mark Doornink, VP of Product Management at VES-Artex, and Tim Taylor, founder and CEO at Vyla. They are going to talk about how technology can help the dairy industry become more sustainable and productive. In addition, they will discuss current trends and levels of technology in the American dairy industry. We recommend this episode for anyone in the dairy industry looking to bring technology into their business and all the companies that want to design and develop apps for this industry. Please follow us on your favorite streaming platform and stay tuned for new episodes. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. If you want to learn more about Octobot, follow us on social media. We are Octobot Dev on Twitter, Instagram, and Dribbble, and only Octobot on LinkedIn. Now, let's get started. Welcome, Mark, Tim, and Guille. Thank you so much for joining us on this new episode. Let's start with introductions. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Doornink. I'm the VP of Product Management at VES-Artex. We're a company that makes environmental solutions for inside the dairy barn for all aspects of environment that touches the cow.
And my name is Tim Taylor. I'm the CEO and a founding partner at Vyla. We're a technology platform for the dairy ecosystem.
Hi, everyone. I'm Guillermo Pérez. I'm the CEO of Octobot, a software development company for other companies like Vyla or Dairyboss.
That's great. So maybe now we can get started by talking a little bit more about your businesses. Tim and Mark, maybe you can explain a little bit more about the solutions your companies provide to dairies. And Guille, maybe you can explain how Octobot got involved in this sector.
Okay. As I mentioned, we provide environmental solutions for inside the dairy barn. That means anything that touches the cow is something that we want to carefully control. So that's the environment, whether that's the gates and the pens and the stall that she lays in. We carefully engineer that to be make it as comfortable and most productive as possible. But then we also manufacture and sell fan or ventilation solutions for inside the dairy barn. And so we carefully control the temperature, humidity, or the THI, and everything that is with the air and the environment so that the cow is as healthy as possible and lives a long and productive life. That's the core of our business, is ventilation and dairy steel inside the dairy barn. I got involved with Octobot upon a recommendation from a good friend that also used Octobot and was very satisfied. So we got partnered up in the beginning of 2020 and have been working with Octobot ever since.
Yeah, that's great. Do you want to tell us about Vyla, Tim?
Sure. Vyla was initiated by several large companies, leading technology companies in the dairy space, Nestle, Land O'Lakes, Lely, Merck Animal Health. And the idea was that dairy farmers need a tool set with which to connect with downstream stakeholders, processors, retailers, consumers, and other institutions. And the idea was not to impose another audit or information request on dairy farmers, but to empower them with some leading tools so that they could first improve their dairy operations, but then second, once the data is in one place, to be able to selectively share that with downstream stakeholders who need to connect with their sources of food. And so in that respect, we started with our first persona, which is called Ascend. It's in the App Store. And it's a set of operational metrics in a summary form for dairy farmers. And so they can see all of their disparate performance indicators in one place. On the dairy farms, one of the biggest challenges is that there's a lot of applications, but they're not necessarily connected. And so the dairy farmers have to log in to dozens of different applications. And one of the biggest requests I've heard from dairy owners and operators is, can I just see all of my performance metrics in one place? And so the Vyla Ascend app meets that need. But then subsequent to that, dairy farmers need to connect downstream. And so because consumers, retailers, and other entities in the ag world are basically saying, I want to know where my food came from, how it was produced, air, soil, water, animal welfare, and those are data driven. So the truth and factfulness of what's taking place on dairies and other food sources has to be connected with consumers. And so ultimately that's our mission, is to connect the dairy world, the dairy ecosystem, for transparency and factfulness. And so we have a big mission and a big vision, but we started with Ascend, which is our first app.
That's fantastic. Guille, we have some experience working with agtech solutions, right? How did this start?
Yeah, that's right. We have experience working with many verticals. We are not focused in a specific one. Previously, we worked in the agtech industry doing things mainly for seeds, prediction, the yield, and that kind of things. Since last year, we started with work first with VES, then with Vyla, and also we worked with Milk Specialty Global. So after like a full year working with different companies in the dairy industry, we have a better understanding of what the industry needs, how it works, and we truly believe that we can help, especially companies that are trying to create competitive advantages using technologies like disrupt the industry where they are, which is clearly the case of VES and Vyla. What we try to do is to partner with them and help them doing this transformation.
Yeah, let's dive a little deeper on these advantages, right? So my next question for you guys is, in your experiences, how do technology and the dairy industry go together? What are the benefits that technology brings to this sector? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's many aspects of farming in general, or agriculture in general, that have adopted or embraced technology. And specific to the dairy farm, we look at the dairy farm in two areas. One is the front of the barn and one is the back of the barn. The front of the barn is where the milk cows are milked, where the utilities and the operations of the milking process are all happen, the front office, if you will. But the cow only spends maybe 2 or 3 hours a day there. The rest of the time she spends in the back of the barn. And in the back of the barn, we see a low level of adoption of technology. The front of the barn has a high level of adoption from many large milking equipment manufacturers and others. But in the back of the barn, there's a need to adopt technology and bring that together. I guess it depends on what aspect you're talking about in farming and in dairy. But we see a huge opportunity in the back of the barn to bring together the operations that make the barn run, where the cow spends the vast majority of her time. We see opportunity in bringing together the data from the environment, manure handling systems, air, all of those things together, all for the benefit of the cow.
Yes, I imagine that there's a lot of opportunities to explore. What do you think, Tim?
I think the dairy industry is starting to accelerate its application of technology. To a certain extent, digital transformation is now running very fast into the dairy industry as dairy operators and owners recognize that to handle many of the challenges of the dairy industry, whether it's cost competitiveness or the need to connect with downstream consumers or quality or just measurability. You know, the old saying, you can manage what you can measure, applies to every process, including the dairies. But now that you can bring more processes together into one view, the dairy ecosystem is now starting to get more efficient, more visible, and more measurable. And so dashboarding, analytics, decision-making tools are all really important on the dairy. And I think that's what we're providing to dairies, both back end and front end.
Guille, anything you'd like to add?
No, no particularly. I believe that, as Tim was saying, getting that advantage of the information, it's something that the dairy industry can benefit a lot. I think there are a lot of opportunities there. And having companies like Vyla that basically are trying to get super easy to get that information together and take decisions based on the information is the kind of things that the industry could benefit from.
Okay. You mentioned some of the different levels of incorporation of technology inside the industry. I wanted also to ask you guys if you think that there's a difference if we compare different regions inside the United States. Do you think the incorporation of technology in dairy business across the country is uniform, or are there some regions that are more advanced than others?
I think there definitely are some regional variation. Cows can thrive in many different climates here in the United States, as well as globally, of course. In the United States, the climates that tend to be hotter and drier, we'll say the America Southwest, California, even Colorado, have a lower level of requirement for how much building is needed to be around the animal. So sometimes just a canopy providing shade or a roof that's connected to the, loosely connected will provide enough cooling for the cow. And then underneath that, maybe some circulation fans. Whereas in the upper Midwest, Idaho, Washington, and the East Coast, the upper East Coast, much more building is needed just for the environment of cow. Because of the difference in housing for the animal, there's a difference in adoption of technology. When you maybe just have cows on a dry lot or open lot with some shade versus in a building where you can carefully monitor and control different things, there's both more financial obligation when you're building a much more substantial building, but also more opportunity for technology to find its way into farming. Think of it as an IoT play for farm. More and more in these buildings, we're seeing smart devices, smart fans, smart motors, smart water troughs, smart headlocks, all these things that put out data that are not connected. The driver of that is, I'm sure Tim will get into, is the efficiencies across the farm and being able to connect that information. So big differences across the United States, although examples exist of simple low-level farming in all regions, but and high adopters in warm regions, but definitely differences across the United States.
So I'll answer the question from a different angle. Instead of talking about it from a regional standpoint, I think I would talk about it one axis being the size of the dairy, and the other axis would be maybe the orientation toward technology. So yeah, obviously we have a big range of dairy sizes in every market, but especially in the U.S. because we have some, dairies with 50 or 100 cows, and then we have dairies with 100,000 cows. And so the larger dairies are more prone toward the need for enterprise software solutions, fully integrated dashboarding, connected data platforms. And the smaller dairies are more single person or family run entities, and all of them need technology, right? And so the need to provide decision-making support and real-time visibility is there. But then the other orientation besides size is the proclivity toward technology adoption. Some of that's generational. My generation and older is like, maybe pencil and paper is fine, right? And the millennials will say, I can't live without my iPhone, or actually my dairy runs right here. This is what it's all about, which is my personal belief because I'm an iPhone guy and a mobile technology proponent. I think to the extent that a dairy owner embraces the idea that it's all about technology, my personal feeling is that we need to move toward the software-defined dairy and the software-defined dairy ecosystem, that you can't successfully run any enterprise, including a dairy farm, without the technology connectivity. So yeah, it varies all over the place. I've literally been on dairies where the owner says pencil and paper is fine. And then I go on to dairies where they're like, I need to get more integrated and I want Siri to tell me what decisions to make while I'm driving to the farm. There's a full range of technology adoption.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, this was another question that I had. Are farmers and dairy employees still resisting technology? As Tim was saying, it seems so that some dairies are still having a hard time to adapt. So I would like to know, why do you think that these dairies are still facing difficulties in implementing technology? What are these barriers that you guys identify?
One barrier is the trust in the technology. The farm needs to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The process of lactation or milking cows doesn't take a break for holidays, for birthdays, for anything, or even for weather problems or internet connectivity. The trust in that technology, that the operation can still run, even though the internet doesn't work right now, is huge. Another key aspect is using that technology in the replacement of labor is big. If they're able to put in a simple robot in the milking parlor, for example, that applies teat dip to the cow before or after she's milked, they can replace one person. And that could be something like $100,000 US for every person they're able to replace with technology. But that technology has to work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the biggest barriers to deploying technology is the issue in the minds of the dairy owners of data ownership, data privacy, and data security. Many of them feel like the suppliers might take advantage of their data and share it without their permission, or sell it without their permission. And I've seen a lot of resistance to technology deployment just on this one issue. And I think it's a challenge for the technology providers to build trust and to build transparency, and to say, hey, here's everything that's taking place with your data. You own it. You're granting us the right to do something with it, to create insights or connectivity, but they need to feel like they're in control of what takes place with their data, not the rest of the world. And it's a big challenge. And Mark and I have been working together now for 5 years, and we run across this issue almost every week. And so as technology providers, I think the burden is on us to clearly communicate what the rules of engagement are, what are our policies, and explain it to them in plain language, not lawyer language. You read terms and conditions and we all just click accept when we get an update from whoever it is, right? But in reality, you have to sit down and have the conversation. And so we've done that with our early stage adopters. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago to just talk about this issue of data privacy, data ownership, and data security in plain language. And it was a real productive meeting. At the end of the meeting, they all felt very, very secure and very, very comfortable that what we're doing with their data meets their needs.
Yes, and for me, I believe, also speaking with other people in the dairy industry, there are two more barriers. One is that if we want to introduce technology in the dairy industry, I mean, there is a reason why people still is using notepads to take notes. I mean, it needs to have the same advantages of using a notepad, which is super straightforward. I mean, these people are not behind a desk, they are on the field. And if the technology that you say that they should start to use is not super easy to use, super intuitive, super straightforward, they are not going to use it. And another thing is, I believe that there is still a lot of work to do to actually, I mean, a lot of the information is still on notepads and Excel spreadsheets. So other industries has the problem that they have too much information and they don't know what to do yet with that information. In the dairy industry, it's kind of the opposite. My understanding is that there are still a lot of opportunities to demonstrate to people in the dairy industry all the advantages or the value that you can exploit for getting information in a digital way. Do predictions, dig in the information. I mean, there are a lot of things and show the real value of doing that.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit more about the people, the people in the dairies using these solutions. Who are they? Maybe you guys can talk about your users. What are they like? What problems are they solving with the solutions you guys created? What can we know about the user?
Yeah, the user is a major area of focus for us. It's all about the customer experience. We're in daily farm operations. So our application needs to be in simple terms. How do I help the work get done today? Or what decisions do I need to make today that will improve operations and efficiency? So a lot of times we'll have our mid-level managers being able to look at information. Again, it goes back to a little bit what Tim talked about with farm size and how involved ownership and management are and how detailed that is. Sometimes you'll have a 900 cow farm where the owner spends, say, 90% of his time on the farm. Mm-hmm. And so our application is actually helping that owner spend a little more time away and have peace of mind that things are happening in his barn, just as if he was standing there to make sure they happen. And he gets that information. Other times, it's managers that are using the information to see what maybe dig into a problem to understand what maybe the cause of these issues might be. And that might go back all the way to how the feed was delivered or the environment inside the barn. So a wide variety of users.
So I think the most important user of technology on the dairy is just the average worker who's feeding the cows or running the parlor. When I first came into the dairy space 5 years ago, I was sort of surprised that most of the technology was available to the management team and to the ownership group on laptops, right, or desktops. And they were isolated and data siloed, right, not fully connected. One of the challenges on dairies is just lack of internet because they're in these rural spaces. And so the internet is either not available or it goes down pretty often. If you're just a fully on-premise solution, it's not powerful, but it's better than having no solution at all. The internet is either not available or it goes down pretty often. And so if you're just a fully on-premise solution, it's not powerful, but it's better than having no solution at all. But ultimately, I think workers need to be connected with key decision making on the farm in detail because dairies can't run successfully on the average, right? You need to look at the tails of your process so that you can see what are the best performers and what are the weak performers in terms of processes, narrow the distribution and move it the mean higher. And so to do that, you have to connect workers with daily decisions on how to improve the dairy. And that means empowering the day-to-day worker with mobile devices. Everybody uses mobile devices. Everywhere you go in the world, we're all on a mobile device. So it's not an issue of training people to use it. It's taking, like Guillermo said, taking information out of Excel and moving it into decision making on the mobile device so that the average worker can feel empowered and connected with the key processes on the dairy.
I'll add that some other users are also the off-farm consultants or the advisor team for the dairy farm, the veterinarian, the nutritionist. They oftentimes will want to get that information ahead of their visit to the farm, which makes their time on the farm more valuable. They're able to look for problem areas within feeding or milking or ventilation or cow health, or animal health. And then when they get there, they're able to focus their efforts in areas where there's real problems. So getting that information into the hands of the consultants, veterinarians, nutritionists is also very key.
Well, speaking about them, actually, one time I was speaking with one of these consultants, and usually they don't have all the information. I mean, usually the information is in a spreadsheet. When they want to review a decision that they took like 2 or 3 years before, to understand why things are doing good or wrong today, it is an issue having that information, for example, in an Excel spreadsheet, because it's hard to find it. It is hard to create good conversations and to figure it out what things should we keep doing and what things should we change because of that aspect.
Yes, I see there's a diversity of professionals and profiles, and I can see that you guys took a lot of time to understand who your users are and what they need. So I also wanted to know, during the software development process of your apps, how important it was to focus on user experience.
Throughout the process, it's an ongoing. We're always checking in with our users. And it's probably one of the most important things is user experience for us. Is the app easy to use? I used to say, I did a lot of airline travel, and no one ever taught me how to use my Delta app. I just opened the app. I knew how to book a ticket. I knew how to change it. I knew how to select my seat. If the plane was on time, things were just easy to use. And so that in that spirit is the same way. We don't want to create a support organization within VES-Artex where we have to teach people how to use the app. I've told many times to my production team, if that's where we're at, we've swung and missed the baseball. We have to be better than that. They have to be able to open the app, even just a simple invitation, just point, click, I can register, answer simple questions, and start getting information. And then that information is needed. It's got to be valuable information. So we're always checking back in with the farm managers and workers and saying, is this helpful? What's missing? How could it be better? What questions aren't you able to answer? So with that constant connection back to the farm, we've built a really good product.
I think one of the biggest challenges in the dairy space is getting data into your platform because the industry hasn't learned to collaborate yet. This idea that I have the data and I'm keeping it for myself doesn't help the dairy farmers progress. And so silos of data or fragmented data need to give way to collaborative data integration. And then what flows to a really elegant app, intuitive app is very powerful. And we're working both of those dimensions. Like Mark said, a great app is intuitive, right? And there's elegance to that. And when you see a great app, you love it and you get addicted to it. But data has to flow to that platform to feed the app. And that's where one of our biggest challenges has taken place in the last year. And so I think one of the biggest areas of opportunity in the dairy industry is for people to say, I'm willing to share and I'm willing to collaborate so that those amazing apps with good UIs have the right data in them on a real-time basis.
Yeah, I connected with something that Tim mentioned earlier. You told us that you see that this digital transformation that is happening in dairies is becoming more visible as it's increasing. I wanted to ask you guys if you think that in these last few years, the speed of technology adoption has increased, and why do you think this happened?
Yeah, it definitely is increasing, I would say, but even at a slower rate compared to other industries. But the dairy industry is adopting more and more technology. Reasons why, I'll say labor shortages again. That's being able to adopt some technology to replace labor, not even replace labor, but to perform functions that a lot of farms aren't able to find someone to do. Repetitive functions, especially that you or I would probably not like doing, and they're having the same struggles. So I do think it's increasing very quickly, actually.
I love the adoption of robotics in the milking parlor because number one, it's really great for the cows. It's so quiet and so peaceful. They're not stressed. I don't know if you've ever been on a dairy where there's the robotic milking. It's like they're autonomous beings. They go to the milking parlor and then they leave when they're done. And then they get to spend the day doing what they want. And it's really amazing. But the second thing about the robotic milking technology that allows a new generation of dairy farmers to actually have the day off because the cows and the robot do the work. And then the dairy farmer can go coach soccer with his kids, and that's a big deal. But then when those robotic milking parlors are connected with the rest of the world, then you understand the dairy better. And so the other thing that I see is the use of machine vision and AI in the dairy space to do what human beings would do. With the human beings, the data stays in their heads, right? But when you have machine vision and AI to look at the animals and the processes on the dairy, whether it's feed, whether it's parlor, whether it's animal condition and movement, in the cloud, we can make decisions. We can see the processes and the animals. And that's a disruptive technology that's taking place that will allow us to get more efficient and deal with labor challenges because not every worker on the dairy has homogeneous skill set or dairy knowledge. So when you have turnover and you have new workers come on, they don't necessarily have the 5 years that the other worker did. And so they might not see an issue with an animal. Whereas the machine vision and AI will say, hey, this animal has a problem. You need to go treat it before she's no longer productive or healthy. I'm really excited about the companies that are coming in to the machine vision and AI space. It's a game changer.
It's great to hear that and the direction that the dairy industry is taking regarding the adoption of those kind of technologies. I believe that also something that is helping to speed the process of adopting technology is actually the consolidation of farms. When you have like a super big farm, every little improvement that you can do will have an impact way more bigger than if it is only like a small family farm. So having this kind of this consolidation also creates the necessity of these little improvements that technology can bring to the industry.
It's a good point, Guillermo. The big farms they have big balance sheets, so they can deploy technology on a large scale. And we're also fighting to bring technology to the smaller farms. We want them to be economically viable, right? Nobody wants to see the 200 cow dairy or the 500 cow dairy go away. But yet, with elegant and connected technology, we can give a lot of the advantages, economic and quality advantages, to the smaller farms that the big farms can have. And so that's a benefit of great technologies. You don't have to be a huge enterprise to deploy it, right? It's like you and I deploy every day on our networks and our iPhone and our iPads. Great technology. We don't have to be big companies to do it. And so digital transformation isn't necessarily just for the huge enterprise. It's for every person. So that's what excites me, is to try to keep these small farms viable economically.
Going back to something that Mark just mentioned, I wanted to ask you, how is the adoption of technology in the dairy industry compared to other agro industries, and why is there a difference? Why do you think?
Good question. So other animal agriculture industries, so we'll talk about poultry or swine, and in some degrees beef. The poultry and swine have adopted technology far, far faster. Poultry industry, for example, if we're in the broilers, the chickens that go for meat are very carefully controlled and have been running on automation for many years. Some of the reasons why might be biology, how uniform the animal is in that environment. You can picture a baby chick that's maybe 10 centimeters tall, very short, we'll say, even shorter, but all of the birds in that house are exactly the same. And by 55, 57 days later, all the animals are, we'll say, much more heavy and ready to go to market. I'm still learning about poultry. I've been in the dairy industry my entire life, but even with swine and pigs, very much more uniform in using technology to control the environment and connecting that environmental data to output, we'll say, a rate of gain. So the dairy industry has some catch up to do. The biology of lactation is much different. Perhaps it's a animal that weighs, we'll say, 1,200 to 1,500 pounds. And then the animals vary from size and stage of lactation throughout the barn. And dairy tends to be spread out across most regions of the United States. The growth in that area, the dairy industry has been very successful. But for in Wisconsin, for example, where I live, lots of dairy farms, very few chickens, few poultry, some turkeys. Not, whereas if you go to the southwest of the United States, southeastern United States, a lot more poultry houses and those things. So regionality as well. Very good question. One that we should learn more about, I think, in our industry.
I also wanted to pick your brain regarding another area inside dairy that I believe can benefit a lot from technology, which is sustainability. So what do you guys think is the relationship between technology and generating more sustainable businesses in dairy?
The sustainability of dairy is an area that I think has a couple different aspects. If you were to ask many dairymen or dairy farm owners, when they hear the word sustainability, usually would come with a negative context to them. They would hear that word and think about regulations and stipulations and rules and things that are going to hinder their operation from being profitable. That's something I think we need to change as an industry. From the dairy service providers like VES-Artex and also Vyla and many others, we would like to see sustainability be something more like, how can we help the dairy be more efficient? That's the context that we have opportunity to grow. And I don't want to imply that dairy farmers break rules or don't follow good environmental stewardship, I think they've been the best environmental stewards that they can be. They have reasons why they take care of the soil, because the soils produce the feed for the animals. If they take the best care of the animals, they produce the products that you and I consume, whether that's meat or milk products. So I think they've always been very sustainable. When you would define it as doing more with less or having more output with the same input. So I think there's opportunity then is for products like Dairy Boss that we built to put numbers to the sustainability. How can we use data to provide the information to show that we're actually taking better care of our animals and proving that with numbers, not just filling out a form and saying, I did the best I could, which is genuine, but now we can actually do it with data and then bring that data together.
Yeah, no question. Well said, Mark. The sustainability has different connotations, different definitions to different parties, right? But if you move the discussion, and let's say we move sustainability off to the side here as a word, and then we move into environmental stewardship and data-driven improvement and efficiencies of the various components that go onto the farm and off the farm, that's hugely progressing because of technology. Let's face it, downstream stakeholders really want to know, is there progress on water management? Are you using less and putting cleaner water out in after dairy process? Are you treating the animals well? What happens to the soil? All of those things are in the concept of environmental stewardship, but unless you have technology, you can't measure it and you can't present to the world your continuous improvement capabilities. And so for me, it's really about the ability to measure it and then the ability to share the increasing capabilities and efficiencies from the dairy. So I believe that every dairy is getting more efficient. If you look at the numbers in terms of the amount of milk being produced, say per liter of water used or per hectare of land, that's getting more productive every year because of improved animal management, improved genetics, improved processing. So the dairy industry is an incredibly efficient industry, but now it has to show it, right? That's downstream stakeholders are saying, show me, prove it to me. Where are the metrics? And so all of the big companies are saying, we want to reach net zero as a bar by a certain year, but you can't reach that unless you can manage it and share the data. And I think the key for us as providers of technology is to provide measurability so you can show the trend lines in an industry that has to tell that story.
That's great to hear. So when we think about the process of building these tech solutions to improve farms and dairies, productivity and other aspects, do you think that relying on tech partners that have experience working in this industry is a plus, and why?
Oh, that's a tough question. There's many technology partners, or we'll say technology companies in the industry. They provide different aspects, whether front of barn or back of barn. And there's sometimes that Tim mentioned it before, where there's might be an approach where it's all about the information. They try to hoard or keep that information. That's a blocker. The opposite is what we need, and that is sharing information. There's other aspects of these companies when you're a startup company that new to the technology and dairy industry. You're very agile and quick, but you also need to be able to understand the industry. So I've seen many technologies that have come into the industry that failed. They're young and young as a company, and agile and move very fast, but failed to understand how to play, or we'll say collaborate in the industry.
I think if the question is, how do you scale a tech company? I think partnering is one of the most important dimensions of it, because you need high talent density and you need scale so that you can grow quickly and deliver functionality to your customer base. Hiring full-time employees, it takes time, right? To build a tech company takes time because you have to get high talent density in the areas that you need. So at Vyla, we believe that partnering is the best way to build a company quickly, because we can search the world and find a development company like Octobot or a data streaming company like Moogle in our case. And then we have market experts that we partner with like VES-Artex. And so we put together a larger than life capability to scale, but we don't have to do it all ourselves. We just find the best partners with the best knowledge. And then before you know it, you have a company tilted up. For me, it's kind of like, it's all about time. The clock is ticking every day, windows of opportunity open and then they close. And if you're trying to hire people and you find the wrong people and then you have to replace them, then you missed your opportunity window. So in our case, we have a friend from Uruguay, Carlos Ramon, who said, hey, I have a partnership going with Octobot. You should consider those guys because they have best of class tools and they have this big pool of people that they can draw from. And within 3 or 4 months, we had our platform going and our UI already up. And then we partnered at the same time with Moogle, who's a dairy data streaming capability. And they came in simultaneously. And before you know it, we had dairy data coming in to a really elegant platform. And people said, oh my gosh, where did you guys come from? Because it took place in 6 months. So my feeling is that we need to partner in the technology space. The old style is you hire everybody and they're full-time employees, right? But for me, if you want to achieve scale and achieve it in a real agile way, you partner. Vyla has 2 full-time employees, right? But we're already larger than life as a company because we've partnered quickly. And I think that's the model for the future.
Yeah, totally. It's important to have knowledge on the industry for sure, but also being able to bring the experience of other industries. It's also a plus because the different ways of do certain things. So, and everything's built up to something new, something disruptive, as the case of Vyla or Dairy was.
I think the other thing that's important in these partnerships is trust and transparency, right? For us, our relationship with Octobot isn't necessarily transactional. We don't have any secrets, and for us, the relationship with Octobot is such a deep partnership that we define them as being part of our company, not just a provider to our company. And I think culturally, that's one of the secrets to success in any relationship. We've been connected now with Octobot for about a year, and both at VES-Artex and at Vyla, it's an incredible partnership because we trust each other and we work together in a really open way. And I think that's the most important aspect of any relationship.
Yeah, I agree, Tim. That was an approach we shared when we've been working together for 5 years, and one I brought to VES-Artex. Our company is owned by Turntide. We work with Turntide on a daily basis, and Turntide has brought in a very deep, talented pool of people. And when they learned about how our approach with Octobot is not transactional, it's a partnership. It was a different way of doing things than, we'll say, the typical Silicon Valley approach, but one that has been proven with success, has actually helped on the growing the business side for Octobot in that aspect. How can we partner together and help each other? So it's been really fun.
Yeah, good point, Mark. I think the culture of companies applies to the relationships between companies that partner. And if you have a mercenary culture, then partnerships don't work. If you have a culture of openness and people are more important than the business and the product, then the relationship will work. And I think the cultures that we're building at Turntide, at VES-Artex, and at Vyla make it so that we include companies like Octobot as insiders rather than just suppliers. I think that's critical.
Yeah. In the case of Octobot, a strong relationship is one of our core values. And being in the same page with you guys, it's awesome. It makes everything super straightforward. It's super easy to build like a good relationship and working through creating something awesome. Because if we are in the same page, we both own the product. Of course it's yours, but for us, it's also ours.
Yes, collaboration is a win-win situation. That's great. And if you guys had to give tips to other software development teams out there that want to start working with dairy businesses, what would you say to them? How can a software development team prepare to work on these kinds of products?
Yeah, I have to be careful, Reggie. I don't want to give away all our secrets, but I don't want to have Octobot go to our competitors. But what I would recommend would be these teams need to get in and immerse themselves in that industry, and that's what Octobot did. It went farther than just asking questions. Webinars and videos and internet searching, There are farms in Uruguay as well. And so I know that they, by the level and the quick speed at which we accelerated once we started almost well over a year ago, I could tell that it was far deeper than just asking questions about the industry. They understood the industry to their level that they could. And getting out there and experiencing it and seeing it, whether videos or in person or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever you use, understanding how the products apply in the industry and what the industry does, I think was a big key point for us.
And I would say it's about the human fit and the cultural fit. Technology companies, like anybody that goes to work, we want to have fun, right? And you want to feel at the end of the day that you did something worthwhile and you did something really cool. I think technology service companies, you should find people that value the people in your company and that the cultural fit is there so that you can have fun together. And at the end of the day, you say, we made something really great and that was worthwhile and the people were respected. The foundational level to a good partnership is not looking for just a project, but looking for a fit between the people. Any
learning points you'd like to share, Guille?
I can speak about being on the other side, let's say, of working with a great partner, as the case of Vyla and VES, which is basically what we were talking about in the previous question. I mean, first of all, with looking for companies. I mean, companies that want to do something new, that want to elevate the game. That's a great opportunity for us. And also having this like really transparent relationship, it's also great. I believe that's the key to a great relationship, which at the end is what you need when you work together with someone. I mean, it doesn't matter if it is a company, a person, or whatever. At the end of the day, it's not business. What is behind are relationships. So it's super important to build trust, honesty, transparency, and we are 100% in the same page with Vyla and VES, and that's why I believe this has been a great journey so far, and I'm sure it will continue to be like this.
Amazing. We talked a little bit about learning from other industries and sectors, and I also wanted to know, how do you guys learn about the agtech trends out there? Do you follow specific portals, channels, or even communities? How do you stay, up to date with the new trends and tendencies going on?
There are a number of, I think every industry will have them, whether you're in manufacturing of drill bits or in the dairy industry or poultry, you'll have industry trade magazines. And I follow all of those. But I think the biggest thing for me is to show up on the farms. And that's where you can understand the trends and talk to the owner, talk to the manager, get a chance to go out and talk to the person that makes the feed and understand what their challenges are and see what's going on. And then look around the farm. Is the farm neat and tidy? Are they struggling with that? Ask them about labor. Look across the street. What is going on across the street? Is there more farms going up, or are there houses being built? Every area is a little bit different. So I've always worked in the dairy industry, so I have a passion for that. You always have to be learning and listening and looking when you're outside in the farms.
I would say keeping your finger on the pulse of an industry is one of the most important aspects of being a tech company. And for me, it's LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn for an hour every day, just reading articles and following companies. I want to see the language trends, the startups. I follow a ton of startups because I want to know what makes a startup get going, what problem are they trying to solve, and how do they raise money and where are they going. Often, like this morning, I saw a startup and I clicked on them, and it's called Bobby. It's a milk formula created by women who wanted a really good formula for their babies. And so it rolled out to the market this year. And then I always want to know who's investing in it, right? If new startups can attract capital, I want to know where that capital is coming from and why. And so I guess, honestly, my favorite source of knowledge is surfing the LinkedIn space every morning while I'm drinking my cappuccino. So.
Great plan. Okay, so now going to my last question. I wanted to ask you guys to give some tips for dairy business that are getting started to the tech world, right? I mean, businesses that are starting to incorporate technology or want to introduce new tech solutions to their dairies. What would you say to them? How can they get started?
Well, I think the first thing is you can have a great technology, but if you don't understand the business or how it's actually going to work on the farm, it's not going to gain adoption. And so my advice would be to really understand what work needs to get done on the farm and what your technology is going to solve. It's one thing to come out and say, I have a new product and it's going to reduce this disease by 50%, and that's a couple $2 billion globally. So the math doesn't always work. It may be fine math, but it doesn't always apply. My advice would be to look at the operation and really help solve a problem every day with that farmer, and you're going to be successful.
Whether a dairy is a huge enterprise with multiple facilities and 100,000 cows, or it's 500 cows, I think the key to deploying technology is having a team of product providers that are willing to work together. They're there to make you successful. So the ultimate metric for a supplier of technology is the outcome on the farm: quality, efficiency, animal welfare, and profitability improving. And to get there, you need a group of people that are collaborative in their commitment to you. And so you need 4, 5, 6 suppliers that you can trust, that are not coming on the farm every day just asking for the order, but they're coming on the farm every day to say, what problems can I help you resolve, and how do we measure the key metric of success? So it's really the collaborative effort among suppliers that helps you deploy technology, because you're not big enough to be the integration point for yourself. It needs to take place with a team.
My recommendation is not doing assumptions, or do assumptions, but then go to the farm and be sure that those assumptions are right. Because creating technology for only creating technology, because it's fancy, because it's new, doesn't work. And you are not going to succeed for sure. It is important that technology solve or helps to improve something with tangible value. Otherwise, it will be another fancy startup that died, let's say, very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's great. I want to add a little tip as well. It's actually an invitation. We published recently in our blog an article talking about our experience building apps for the dairy sector. So feel free to go and visit our article. And over there, you'll find also the option to download an ebook with more information about this word. So I guess this could be valuable as well if you are getting started on this word. And that's it from my side. Thank you guys so much for all this amazing insight, and I hope you had a great time too. And if there's anything else you would like to add to the conversation before we say goodbye, now it's the time.
Thanks for the day. Nice to get to know you guys.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Thank you guys for joining us and for sharing all your insights on this industry. I much appreciate it.
We want to thank our listeners who joined for this latest episode of Octobot Tech Talks. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow us and share this episode with your colleagues and anyone interested in a good tech story. Have a great day, everyone. Until next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Octobot Tech Talks. Follow us here and also in our social media. We are Octobot Dev on Twitter, Instagram, and Dribbble, and Octobot on LinkedIn. See you soon!